Okay, so the HTML for our CSS image slider is complete. So now we just need to style the page first of all. Before we do any keyframes or animation, we just want the page to look presentable. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into style.css. And I had said earlier that I'm not going to use a reset file. In the last project we used the Eric Myers reset. Here we don't need it. What I'm going to do is do, I guess, a global reset, and we can do this with the asterisk. Alright, so this symbol here basically represents everything. Okay, so whatever styles we put in here, it's going to be applied to every element. Alright, and this is a really easy way to reset your code, and to tell you the truth, in most cases, well, in my case, this will suffice. All right, you don't actually need the reset file. All right, so basically, what I like to do is zero out the margin and padding of everything. That way, we have a clean slate. Also, set borders to none. Okay, we want to set outline to none, and then I hate list bullets, so just about 99.9% of the time I'll set list style to none. Alright, so this is basically, I just call it a global reset. Alright, so if we save this, let's see what's different here if we reload. Okay, so now we have no more margin and padding on anything, even the actual HTML tag itself. The list has no more default padding or margin. The list doesn't have the bullets anymore, so it just reset everything for us. Okay, so the next thing, as I've said before, I like to work from the top down, and the next thing we have is the body. Okay, so we're going to style the body. Now, I think that I actually want to use a background image. Alright, if we look at the final product here, we just have a solid color for the background, and I do kind of want to work in a little bit of Photoshop work into this course. Definitely not needed, but it's always good to know how to slice up images or how to add a background image and repeat it, things like that. So I think what I want to do is just create a very simple gradient image and use that for the background. So I want to use the same color scheme, the same dark bluish grayish, but I want to give it a gradient so that it kind of fades into a lighter shade of it. Okay, so what we want to do is create an image that is probably about, I don't know, 700 pixels tall. Okay, so the height would be about 700 pixels, and the width would be very little, maybe like 3 pixels or something like that. And we'll give it a gradient, and then we'll repeat it to go across the whole page. Alright, so it might actually be easier to show you what I mean. So I have Photoshop open, and I have my colors down here in the color palette. Okay, I have that purplish grayish, I don't know, whatever you want to call this color, and then I have a slightly lighter tint of it. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a new image, and for now I'm going to give it a width of 500 pixels, and I'm going to give it a height of 700. And what I want to do is make a gradient with these two colors. So I'm going to use this gradient tool here, and then go up to the top and hold shift and go down to about here and let go. Okay, so now it gives me this gradient where it starts dark up here and it gradually gets lighter. Alright, now we can actually take this image and repeat it and make it go across the whole body of our site or of our web page. So we don't need it to be this wide since we're going to repeat it. So I can actually crop it. I'm going to use the crop tool and make it really small. Okay, and then crop it. Okay, so it is Okay, so it's 5 pixels wide, which is fine. You could do smaller, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this to, actually, yeah, I'll just save it as BG image, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And I'm just going to bring this to, we'll say 10 maximum quality. Alright. So now I'm going to get that image and put it into my images folder. Alright, so now let's go back to body, and we want to say background. Now this, remember, this image is only 700 pixels tall. So what we need to do, let me go back to Photoshop. We need to make the actual background color of the body the same color as the very bottom of this image, because that's where it's going to end. Okay, so let me just zoom in here, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to get the color. And then I'm going to copy this hexadecimal value. Okay, so we want to say background and then that color, and then specify the URL, which is going to be in the image folder, and it's called bgimage.jpg. Okay, and we want to make sure that we repeat X. Okay, X is the left and right x-axis, and Y is up and down. We want it to repeat left to right. Okay, so that should do it. Let's save it. Go back. And now we have a gradient. You can see it's darker at the top. Alright, so that was completely optional. I just wanted to just show you have the option to do something like that. With CSS3, you can also actually use gradients without images, which we'll do in a later project. But I mean, I figured that using a background image and repeating it is kind of a fundamental thing when it comes to knowing CSS. Alright, so let's get back on track here. So for the body, what else do we want to do? Let's change the font family. Okay, I'm going to change to Arial and sans serif. Okay. So that should do it for the body. Next thing I want to do is the container. Alright, so for the container, let's give this a width of 718 pixels. I know that's kind of a strange width, but just with the given image sizes, that's what seems to work out. Okay, and we want to give this an overflow of hidden, and we want a margin from the top, we'll go 40 pixels. From the left and right, we want auto, because we want it to be placed in the middle of the page. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and do the H1 tag. I'm not going to give it a class because it's the only one, so just styling it directly is fine. I'm going to make it white, and I want it to be aligned center. And let's give it a margin bottom of 20 pixels. Okay, looks good. So now let's move to the thumbs. Okay, the thumbnails. What we want to do is we want to float these so that they go across horizontally. So let's grab the UL class of thumbs, and we want to style the list items. So we want to float to the left, and we're going to give some margin to the bottom. Okay, we'll do 10 pixels. And also margin to the right, so we can give them a little space between each other. So here we're going to do 9 pixels. Alright, so now those should be floated horizontal. Alright, so we have multiple lines here because we still have this this description showing. So let's see. So the thumb links, we'll do ul.thumbs_a. So this will take care of the descriptions. Okay, so basically this link right here. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is make sure we display it as a block. Alright, and give it a position of relative. And the width and height. So width, we're going to say 85 pixels. And height is going to be 55 pixels. So border, we want a full border. We'll say 4 pixels, solid, and I'm going to make it transparent. And then the font, for the font, I'm going to say bold. We'll say 12 pixels by 25 pixels. And Arial will be the font family. Okay, now the color, we're going to do a hexadecimal 515151. We want to take away the underline, whoops, so we can do that with text decoration. And we're going to set that to none. And then add some text shadow. Alright, so let's see, we'll do 1 pixel top, 1 pixel, 0 pixels, and then we're going to do an RGBA value. Okay, we want to do 255, 255. 25. And let's see, this should actually be 0.25. And then we want to do an inset, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 0 pixels, and then RGBA. And here we're going to say 0, 0, 0, 0.15. Alright, so let's check this out before we do anything else. Alright, so that looks good. I want to add a border to these, so I'm going to say ul.thumbs_image. Okay, we'll give this a border of really dark gray, almost black. And we'll make it solid and 4 pixels. Alright. Now I know you can see this text here, the description. Don't worry about that. We're going to take care of that. Alright, so moving on. We're going to now deal with the slides. Okay, so the slides list. So ul, want to do ul.slides, and we're going to set overflow to hidden, and we're going to clear both. Oops. Okay, we're clearing it because the thumbs list above it, the list items are being floated, so we want to make sure we clear that. And let's give it a border of the same thing as the thumbs will do. Okay. We will take care of this. You see how this is longer than the thumbs. We will make them even. So what I want to do is I want to set the width and height of a few things. Okay, so first of all, ul.slides itself, and also ul.slides list item, ul.slides a, and ul.slides image. Okay, so these are all going to be the same width and height. Okay, so we'll set the width to 705 pixels, and then the height will be 350 pixels, and then we just want to position relative. Okay. Alright, so now you can see that the actual image is the same size as its container. Okay. Alright, so before we do anything, before we do our keyframes and animation, I want to take care of the image description. Okay, so we want to make this little pop-up. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll say ul.thumbs li a hover and then span, because the description is wrapped in a span. And we're going to position this absolute. Okay, we're going to set a z-index of 101. Okay, z-index just has to do with what goes on top of what. Okay, if you have two elements or two divs and they're on top of each other, z-index will help you decide. It'll let you decide which one to show on top of the other. All right, and then we're going to do bottom. We're going to go from the bottom negative 30 pixels, and then from the left we're going to do negative 22 pixels. Alright, and we want to make sure it's displayed as a block. Alright, and let's set a width for this for 100 pixels, and then we'll set the height at 25 pixels, and we want to align it to the center. Okay, and let's go ahead and set a border radius of, we'll do 3 pixels, and I'm going to add a box shadow. So say box shadow 0, 1, 0, and then RGBA. And for the RGBA value, we'll do 0, 0, 0, and then .4. Alright, now we also want to add the vendor prefixed versions as well. Okay, so we want to do WebKit. Okay, WebKit and Moz. Alright, now let's go ahead and create a background. Okay, so the background, we're going to actually do a gradient here. Now, prior to CSS3 and the gradient, being able to set the gradient, we would have to use images, all right, much like we did with the background. Okay, so for our gradient background, we used an image, but you can use, you can do it through CSS, all right. And there's two types of gradients. There's linear, which goes up, down, left, right, and diagonally, and then there's radial, which is defined by their center. Okay, so it basically goes from the center out. And linear is mostly what we'll be dealing with, and is a lot more common than using radial. Alright, so what we want to do first is set the background sorry about that, I keep clicking out of my virtual machine. We're going to set it to white for older browsers. Okay, because older browsers will not render the gradient. Alright, and then we're going to say background and linear gradient. Alright, and then as far as parameters, we're going to say top white. Let's see, top white 0%, and then we're going to use the hexadecimal BC, which is a really light gray, and we'll say 100%. Alright, so we're going to use vendor prefixes for this as well. Alright, so you can see that it's not giving us a gradient. So we're going to copy this. Okay, and let's see, we'll start here, and we'll add the prefix Moz, and also WebKit, and what else? O for Opera, and we'll do MS for Internet Explorer. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that and reload, and now you can see we have our gradient. Okay, no images involved whatsoever. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to give this a little arrow. Okay, if we go here, you can see that it has this little arrow at the top, or the triangle. So we're going to do that. Again, we're not going to need to use images. We can do it right in the CSS. So ul.thumbs, list item, link, hover, and then span, and we're going to use the before selector. So before, and we can also use after, these are called pseudo elements. Alright, and this before pseudo element is used to insert content before the content of the element. Alright, so we want to put it before everything in this span, span, alright, which is what we just did here. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to first set the width and height to 0, and then we're going to create borders on the bottom, left, and right. Okay, so we're going to say border bottom 5 pixels, solid, and white. Alright, I'm going to copy this. We're going to do the same thing for the left and the right. Alright, and then we're going to use content and set that to just 2 single quotes. We want to position this absolutely, and we'll say from the top we want -5 pixels, and from the left we'll do 44 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to save and go ahead and reload. Let's see, that shouldn't be a box. Oh, okay. Only the bottom border should be white. The left and right should be transparent. And that should fix our problem. Should make it into a point. Alright, good. Okay, so we're just about done with the page CSS. One thing you'll notice is if you hover over the first one, the pop-up, the description is cut off. So we need to do something about that. Okay, so we'll say ul dot thumbs li, and we want to grab the first child. Okay, so it's the first child element. Whoops. Alright, and that's a pseudo selector as well, just like before or after. So first child, and then a hover, and then span. Okay, so for this, we're just going to set left to -3 pixels. Alright, and then I'm going to copy this. And we want to just say span before, and we're going to set left to 25 pixels. Oops. Okay. Alright, so let's save that and reload. And now you can see that it's pushed over, it's not being cut off. Okay, so that looks really good. I think I'm going to stop here, and then in the next video we will add the keyframes and we'll create the animation.